And for the most part, I think this is the biggest problem that the world is facing right now.
Is there anybody there?
Hello and welcome to the Mind Hustle podcast, practical advice for mastering your mindset and self-improvement. I'm your host, magician and mind reader, Dean O'Dell, and today I'm joined by Aidan O'Sullivan. Aidan is a wizard, magician, psychological illusionist, life coach with a passion for self-development and intentional living. Hello and welcome, Aidan. Thank you so much for joining us on the first episode of the Mind Hustle podcast.
Wow. Thank you so much for having me on. That was an awesome intro. I love that. That's so good.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's my first intro, so I'm glad you liked it.
That was flipping fantastic. I know everything. I feel so alive. I'm ready to go. Like this is great. I can't wait to see where this is actually going to go. I know I'm going to be listening religiously myself. So
brilliant. Should we just jump right in? So,
yeah.
So it seems like everyone is talking about intentional living. And I think this is a perfect topic for us to kick off this podcast with, because intentional living is very much a part of creating a positive mindset and, you know, taking actions on what's really important. But Aidan, what does intentional living mean to you, and why is it so important?
Yeah, that's a really sort of great question. I really want to unpack that a little bit. I think intentional living, for the most part, is quite. If we look at the definition, intentional living is living with intent, actually living and doing things for a reason. You've actually got a reason why you're doing these things. And for the most part, I think this is the biggest problem that the world is facing right now. And I know that at the time that we're recording this, obviously we've just been through 2020. It's crazy, but the biggest problem is none of that. The biggest problem is actually the fact that people aren't living intentionally. And this is causing so many problems, which we can unpack a little bit later. But intentional living for me is very much a case of just knowing what you want in a certain area or your life in general, and being able to sort of just do that. Because we complain so much that we're stuck in terms of like, oh, we're stuck in a job that we're not happy with. Okay, that's good. Are you complaining, or are you identifying an opportunity to actually start living more intentionally and do something you want to do? So it's just so important, because it really is the essence of what it means to truly live and enjoy your life. You've got to do it in the way that you want, and the easiest switch you can do is just live your life every day with intention.
That's it. For me, it's, you know, when a person sort of sits down and evaluates their own values and their passions and aligns them, you know, with their life to those principles, really, to live that way, live intentionally. I'm really interested to know sort of what experiences in your life kind of led you to this wake up call, this epiphany, to focus on intentional living.
Well, yeah, there's many. Every single day there's a new learning experience that just makes me think, well, there's an area that I can work on. But I think it was about a year ago now, coming up to a year ago, I kind of had this idea that, like, I ran into a brick wall. Not a literal brick wall, I would probably say that. But I kind of ran into this metaphorical wall and just thought, there's a problem. And I cannot tell you what anything more than that, other than something in my head was just like, wow, okay, there's a problem here. There's something that I don't get. Like, I wasn't enjoying my job. I was just not really doing a lot else. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't have a purpose in that sense. I didn't know what my life was going to be. I had these big ideas, like we all do, like, oh, I can live in this place doing this thing. And when that wasn't there, or it felt a little bit out of reach, I kind of had this big, wow, okay, I need to fix this, whatever this is. And that kind of led me into the world of sort of personal development and really honing my skills and my ability as not just a performer, but also as an entrepreneur, and also just a person all round, because they're the areas that I was neglecting. And that's allowed me to get crystal clear in terms of, right, this is the area I need to focus on. How can I be what I want to be in there? And I went through a process on the Mind Valley platform called Lifebook. And that actually broke down my entire life into 12 key areas. And it's the 12 key areas that anyone can take that program. But I went through and got crystal clear in terms of what do I want in each of those areas. Why do I want it in each of those areas? What does that look like for me in the terms of like my entire life? And then how do I do it? How do I start doing that and living that? And that kind of led to that intentional living, because I became so crystal clear with the person I want to be, the life I want to live, and how I want to do it, that there was only one real option: do it.
Do it. So that's really interesting, because you obviously had that awakening sort of experience to realize that your life is not in the position you want it to be. You're stuck in this sort of hamster wheel of just going through the motions through everyday sort of living. And so once you realized you were in that position, what did you say you went to sort of Mind Valley? So was it a case of doing your own sort of research and saying, look, I'm in a point, I need to sort of do something, and you found Mind Valley, or was it a book that you read? What sort of what was your influence into changing your outlook?
I mean, I'll be honest, I think it was kind of a bit of a fluke, in the sense that I didn't actively go and find Mind Valley. I didn't go and find that area, or I didn't go and find something that said, oh, personal development's the way forward. I knew that was my next step. I knew I had to do that. I knew I had to look inwards so that I could be outwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so, makes total sense. Because I think there'll be a lot of people listening that are probably feeling that same way, and just then wondering, where to go and what to do. So you've mentioned Mind Valley. Do you want to mention and talk to the audience about what Mind Valley is?
I mean, brilliant. So I'm in no way linked or affiliated with Mind Valley at this moment in time. You never know in the future. Maybe Mind Valley love that I'm plugging them so much. But Mind Valley is essentially the world's leading #1 personal development education system there is. It's fantastic. They've got some really great sort of what they call quests, but these are behavioral change courses that go deep into specific sort of topics, specific subjects. For example, and this is how I kind of found Mind Valley in that sense, is that there was an advert on YouTube that I saw about mastering your sleep. And it was a free masterclass that you could go through and master your sleep. And I thought, this sounds interesting. Free master. I watched that, and it was fantastic. Like, I'd never slept better in all my life. I now wear blue light blocking glasses in the evenings, and it's amazing. But from there, I kind of learned more about the Mind Valley platform. And then obviously, because I knew I was doing that deep inner work at the time, and I needed to find a way to do that inner work, I actually watched the Lifebook masterclass. And from there, I just jumped straight in. I was like, yes, I have to do this. And that kind of went through there. So the Lifebook was a full program, as I've just mentioned, but Mind Valley are really the leading personal growth platform. And honestly, what they're doing at the minute and their 2021 plans and going forward is huge. They want to be the #1 education system in the world. And I genuinely believe that they're going to get to that point. The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhiani. It's a fantastic book. Like, there's 2 books that I gift to people, and that is one of them. I'm on my 6th or 7th read this year already. It's one of those books that every time you read it, there's something new or a new idea, or you get an idea based off of an idea. I recommend that.
Yeah, definitely. As someone else that's read that book as well, I found that really resonating with some of the ideas around cultural biases.
Yeah, I think there's a really important distinguish, to put it into absolute perspective. Like, people might be thinking, what does that actually look like? What does cultural bias actually look like? It's all well and good that we're sitting here saying, oh yes, there's cultural bias, but what does it look like? And sort of the prime example that I like to give is that we all live the same lives as each other. We all live the same lives as each other. And again, that's speaking for the majority, for the most part. So to unpack that just very slightly, we spend the first 18, 20 something years in education. So the first bunch of our life, we go through the education system. Usually in the UK, it's primary school, secondary school, sixth form, university, all of that kind of stuff. And there's a real push for university in the education system, because school rankings and all of that kind of, which really is where it comes down to. It's all the rankings and the best education. So we go through that entire process. From there, we leave that system and we jump into the new system, the world of work, where we sit and wait for 40 to 60 years and just through a career that is largely unappealing for the most part. Again, we go 40 to 60 years, and then at the end of it, we can enjoy the last 20 years of our life if we've made it that far. Not to take a morbid turn, but we go through that entire journey. We've got the education system that we all do identically in the UK. We go through the 40 to 60 years of work through careers that are often long and unfulfilling in the UK, which that's fine. And then that 20. And the best bit about this, I've been speaking to people over in India about this. I've been speaking to people in America. I've been speaking to people all over the world. This is not just a culture bias. This is actually a worldwide bias. This is the system, the way that we go through it. And actually, from my personal experience and my understanding, is that that isn't for everybody. No. And we can escape that. But that's just an example to paint the picture of one way that the culture biases our entire lives. We're all the same.
Yeah, definitely. It's a sort of I was going to say it was a Western model, but from what you're saying, it's more widespread. Yeah, so more widespread than that.
Yeah, the numbers kind of like they change a little bit, like in terms of the times and the way, like the specific structure. But when you boil down to it, it's education, lots of long unfulfilling work for the most part, then the end bit, the bit on the end, which we're supposed to live for. That's the bit that we have to really live so that we can really enjoy the pensions and everything. So we work so we can really enjoy ourselves. But why don't we just stop?
And I guess that's why we're talking about intentional living.
Exactly.
But also just to chuck out another perspective, I guess. So there might be people that are listening to this and they're, maybe they work full time, but they're also a parent, so they've got the responsibilities of their children, or maybe they're a full time carer or something like that, and they just feel that there's no way of getting out of that cycle of of that way of living. So I guess even for those people listening, how can they live more intentionally? And what advice would you give to someone that wants to live more intentionally and has no way, has no idea where to start, really?
That's a great question. It's all well and good for me to say, the world doesn't live intentionally, but to not give an example is just to waste your time. But you paint a really good example of this. And I kind of want to take this in two ways, because I've obviously explained that largely the system, the world system, the work system, our life system is the same. And I'm not saying that everybody should break it. Everybody should work for themselves or do things that are fulfilling or retire early. Or I'm not saying that everybody should do that, because largely that won't match. We're all individual. We all prefer our own things in our own ways. What I am saying, though, is that you have to be the judge. You have to be the one that makes the decision. If you want to spend that 40 to 60 years in one career that you can really knuckle down in and absolutely become the number one in, or you can be your best self in that, or you can just really enjoy that complete career, do it. If you disagree with anything that I'm saying right now, that is also a good thing, because that's telling me and telling you, more importantly, that you disagree. So now you have a reason why. It's kind of, we're expected to try and be happy all the time. That's kind of what there's a pressure on now. It's like we need to be happy. And if our life purpose and our life mission is to be happy, we're actually chasing something that is hugely binary. We're either happy or we're not. And when we're not completely happy, when by default, we're not. And then we're not achieving what our big life intention is or what we really want to be. When anything below complete optimum happiness is a failure. And then we start grinding ourselves away, trying to be happy, trying to force ourselves to be happy. And then actually the happiness and the joy that comes from the things that we're doing is actually extracted, because we're only doing those things for the outcome. We're actually chasing an outcome that happens organically rather than something that we can do that. And instead, my vision or my model is to actually chase fulfillment. or chase something that gives you that satisfaction,
Sure.
and then the happiness will come. That's a byproduct. What's the most commonly asked question probably in the world today? It's like, what do you do? What do you do? And really, like, I think that's the wrong question. What we need to be asking is not what do you do or what you're going to do, and then that kind of goal setting. We need to flip it, and I know Vishen talks about this as well, but we need to flip it into the world of who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? What's the person that you're going to be? What's the life that you're going to have, like, become around you? Because once you've got that part, suddenly the question gets better and the discussions are more rich, and you can really unpack that world of intentional living over what do you do? Oh, well, I just do this. You are not the job that you're being paid to do. You're not that at all. Like,
no, you're not labeled by the job title.
I give this example, like this exact example. Like, I want you to try and do this, Dean. Obviously, we've got a bit of a biased conversation, but the listeners as well.
Yep.
Just take a minute. I'm going to shut up for a second, but I just want you to think 3 things when I ask you the question, who are you? Just think three different points. I'll shut up for a second.
Okay. I think I know where you're going to go with this, but I'm going. Yeah. Okay.
So you've got 3 things. For the most part, again, I'm hoping that at this point the listeners will be able to sort of piece, like, who are you in 3 points. And the point I really want to make, I'm not going to be some absolute genius in terms of the world of mind reading right now and tell you what your 3 are, Dean, but chances are that you, and for most people, it is either their name, they come under their name, it then becomes a job, or your age, or where you live, and something like that. And these are 3 categories that are just labels that you throw on top of yourself. I mean, I think your name is probably the most important of the 3, but you are not the job. You are not.
No, and I think you're spot on. That's exactly what I wrote down. But
I'll take that.
but I think it comes down to, and this is maybe one of the steps around intentional living, is maybe I've not taken the time to sit down and think about, who I am and what I want to be able to sort of put that down on paper, or answer that question in a more a deeper level. And so then my brain sort of just goes to the bare basics of what I know as sort of pure fact, which is, as you say, your name, your age, your gender,
exactly.
that kind of thing. These
simple little decisions that we make them unconsciously for the most part. We just, who are you? Okay, well, this, because we believe that describes us in the best possible way, whereas actually I want people to start describing themselves in a different way. Who are you? Not what do you do? Because if I wanted to know what you did, I would ask that question. But who are you as a person? Who actually are you? If I'm sat here talking to Dean O'Dell, but who is Dean O'Dell? I want to unpack that. And the key here is that this is going to sound really intense, but it is. There's no easy way around it. It is intense. It's not easy. It's simple. The whole intentional living methodology, like everything that I'm doing, is based off of a very simple methodology. Point, shoot. Point at what you want, shoot. Start doing that stuff. And that's the easiest, the simplest solution. Point, shoot. But the point I'm really trying to make is that this isn't easy. This is going to take time. This is going to eventually become something that makes more sense later down the line. And the best part is that you can always change it. Everything. You can always change it. And when your goals, and going back to this point, when your goals now are about what are you going to learn, who are you going to be after you achieve that goal, then suddenly not only are they more like psychologically proven to be more attainable and actually more realistic and more achievable, even if they're bigger and scarier, because you're focused on the growth, but you also get more out of the experience. You want to write a book? Okay, that's great. You have to become the writer in that sense, and you have to learn in that process everything about writing and books and publishing and styles and all of that kind of stuff. So that out of it, okay, sure, maybe the goal originally was publish a novel, but actually the real goal was to learn about writing find my writing style or find a way of being able to share my information through the medium of writing. But that's the kind of point. And then it becomes a situation of intention then, because you're doing things for a reason rather than just doing it because it's always been like that, or that's the way it is, or anything like that.
So Aidan, I have 3 questions here that I want to ask every guest on the Mind Hustle podcast. So you're going to be the first one to answer these questions. So can you share with my listeners, with our listeners, your favourite quote?
Ooh.
This doesn't have to be, don't feel pressured for this to be a motivational quote, or it could just be something, a beautiful piece of writing that you might just enjoy, or something that inspires you.
I think really the one that sticks around the longest, I mean, you follow me on Instagram, you know that I post loads of quotes all the time. Like I really love my quotes, but I think the one that I end up saying the most to myself, more so than other people, is like the Chinese proverb that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
That's really, that sort of fits in with what we've been talking about today as well. It's vision that you might have for your life might seem so far away, but it's about understanding those tiny steps and that compound effect that small changes make to that end goal. And it's about making that clear. And that's a lovely way of expressing that idea and what we've talked about. Yeah, moving on to the second one. So could you recommend something that you've been inspired by? So it might be a book, it might be a piece of music or art. It's entirely up to you. Something our listeners might enjoy. It might be, as long as it's not a cat video on YouTube. That's
oh, damn. That was it. I'm only inspired by cat videos. Oh, damn. No, I mean, those that know me know that I love philosophy, and I find a lot of inspiration there because it naturally is sitting. It's pools of inspiration. But in the modern world, like, I'm a huge music fan. Like, you go through my Spotify playlists, I've got everything, and sometimes I've got classical sat next to like heavy metal. Like it's just the way it is, because I get so inspired by music, and specifically I love movie soundtracks. Like I listen to more movie soundtracks than I do anything else. If I was to name up, like, Hans Zimmer,
sure, yeah,
Brian Tyler, like they're my 2 absolute idols in the world. Like they're fantastic.
I'm excited to see what Zimmer does with the new James Bond film when that comes out, because he did the score.
So excited. Literally, I don't think he's had a bad score. Like, my favorite score of his is Interstellar. I've still never seen the movie.
No, I've not. No,
it's my favorite pieces of music ever, and I've not seen the movie. I feel bad for that, but like, I think it just stands a testament. I love movies as well. I'm a movie addict, but really it's the soundtracks and the music, because it just changes everything. So, as a performer, music can really sort of, it just does something to your entire, like, a performance piece. Like, or when people are sat waiting to watch your show, if there's music playing, you can use that to your advantage and get people on your side. And we do this so much as performers, and it's profound.
Yeah, it creates a mood and more importantly, a feeling within people listening to music, and you can take them back to certain memories and as I say, feelings and things, and that's a really powerful tool for performers like us. And it's one of the 6 senses after all. Hang on.
5 senses.
5 senses. Yeah. So I'm thinking,
we work with our intuition. We've got a bonus sense.
That's right. So 5 senses. So it's one of the 5 senses. Now I'm also thinking on the top of my head, how do I encourage taste into my shows? But maybe that's a subject for a different.
I think podcast. That one needs to be a non-podcast discussion.
And the last one. So any other words of wisdom you would like to leave with our listeners?
Oh, I wouldn't say anything that I say is a word of wisdom, but no, I mean, just, again, as we've said, it's this entire process of self-reflection and intentional living can be as complicated or as easy as you make it. But all I ask is that you at least do it once. You make one intentional decision, and that's it. And the reason, like, there's a really underhand, horrible reason that I'm asking you to make that decision. It's because now that you've heard what I have to say, and if you implement this once, this is like a light bulb that you will never switch off. I've spoken to people about this intentional living stuff, and 6 months later, we've like not spoken about it in that 6 month time, and they've come back to me and they've said, like, you know what, that one conversation, it's changed everything. It's changed my outlook on life. So just, I don't really have any other words of wisdom other than just, if you want, make one intentional decision, and then you'll already be changing your life.
I think that's the perfect thing to end this podcast on. I think. Thank you so much for joining me, Aidan, on this on the first Mind Hustle podcast, and I look forward to having you back at some point. And there's lots that we could talk about. And today it was about intentional living, and I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me.
So, where can our listeners connect with you online?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, I think the easiest approach is to head over to stopexisting.com. I mean, by all means, take the test. It is a mailing list thing. I'm open about that. If you hop onto my mailing list, you'll get that and all the other information from there. But I mean, if you just want to come and just hang out, I'm on Instagram at stopexisting.now, or just stalk me. As you said at the start, I'm a wizard. Just search Aidan the Wizard on like Instagram or anywhere and connect like that. But
brilliant. I'll make sure to add all of those links in the show notes below. I just want to take the opportunity again to thank Aidan O'Sullivan for joining me on this podcast. I hope this episode has given you an opportunity to think about living life with more intention, and I hope this conversation with Aidan has given you the enthusiasm to begin that journey. I'll make sure to add all the links to everything that we have spoken about today in the show notes below. Please do head over to Apple Podcast and let me know what you think and leave a review. It would mean so much. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you'll be the first to know when the next episode is available. Thank you so much for listening to the first episode, and I look forward to talking with you next week.